Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Test 2 Plus again today. I am Trace, this is Amy. We are here today talking about breasts. This is episode 3 of 5 in our series on boobies, so make sure you watch the other 2 episodes about why we have them and what's inside of those things on the front of people's bodies. But today we're going to talk about the social impact of breasts and why we look at them the way we do in our societies.
Well, a professor of psychiatry from Emory University named Larry Young studies the neurological basis of complex social behaviors, including why we love breasts. And he actually thinks that our attraction to breasts comes from the mother-infant bond during breastfeeding. So it might be that men love breasts for the exact same reason babies love breasts.
I get that. I understand that. It seems kind of like Freudian and a little creepy, actually. But
a little bit.
The thing is, the media and advertising have also, latched onto breasts, so to speak. That's pun intended. Because, sex sells. It does. And the thing is, we do need to reclaim our breasts for humans. Like, it turns out that they can be sexual and they can also be not sexual. Both can be true, and we need to be able to look at them that way if we want to, study them. And
right.
There seems to be one thing that humans do gravitate to, which we mentioned a little bit earlier, and that is breast size.
Right, but it's not entirely the case that all people universally love big breasts. There can be a lot of reasons why you like a specific breast size. It can be emotional or biological or cultural. It could be that the first time you ever saw a naked or a topless girl that you really had a crush on, her body became sort of your ideal figure, that is what you find the sexiest. And if she had tiny boobs, you might just have a thing for tiny boobs, and that's an extremely personal connection to a certain size.
Right, but that being said, there have been a lot of studies on breast size and how we feel about that. So, even silly ones, like hungry men, apparently, prefer larger breasts. Subconsciously, perhaps the studies found that it was seen as food security or maybe a signal to fat reserves, access to abundance of resources. Similar to in the 19th century, larger women were considered the beauty ideal because it would show that they had enough money to buy lots of food. They were able to live a more, voluptuous lifestyle,
right,
to make another pun out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also studies that show more negative stuff, like that sexist men might prefer big breasts.
Which is pretty interesting. Sexist men generally perceive women with larger breasts as being more traditional and traditionally feminine and meek and weak, which really kind of goes against the idea of wanting those women because they have abundance of resources, because men are more attracted sometimes, the more sexist men, to women who need a male to take care of them.
That's really kind of strange as well, and it's almost contradictory to the previous study, but I don't want to just focus on men. We want to talk a little bit about everybody, and another study in the journal Sex Roles found that both men and women focus very specifically on chests and waists when it comes to looking at each other. So they were showing men and women pictures of these people, and they were altered physically in the photo, like photoshopped. So some had bigger breasts, some had smaller waists, and it turned out that people were staring a lot at their breasts.
Because we all ogle.
We all ogle. It's a thing that we all do. And so that brought me to looking up, like, what about lesbian women and bisexual women? How do they feel about breasts? Do they like larger breasts? And it turned out in the Journal of Sex Research, they tested this theory, and it turns out they only used lesbian and bisexual women who did not identify as heterosexual, and the ideal breast size was large. So apparently those women also enjoy large breasts. It's not just men. And that the second most popular was smaller breasts, which you could probably find in men as well, although I didn't look that up. And the ideal hip-to-waist ratio of both men and women is, I think, about 0.7 or something.
I found 0.68 to 0.72, which is interesting because it's not actually that far from the ideal figure of 36, 24, 36 for a woman to have the perfect hourglass shape.
Only if she's 5'3". But, this is just, there's a whole lot of different studies on breast sizes and changes in breast sizes over time. Men for fatherhood preferred bigger breasts, was a study done in the journal Archives of Sexual Behavior. And men who didn't want to have children showed a preference for women with smaller breasts and actually a larger waist-to-hip ratio, which is kind of interesting.
That's surprising.
You wouldn't think that you'd want a larger waist-to-hip ratio since the hips are like,
the birthing hips.
So
men with a lot of resources aren't necessarily attracted to that sort of evolutionary thing of needing a woman to have resources that would be identified or sort of seen subconsciously with larger breasts. And typically men who want a submissive partner look for women with smaller breasts. But ultimately, whatever your preference is, you can get whatever you want. Thanks to modern medicine, you can have a breast reduction, or more common is a breast implant to have the size you want. Because for a lot of people, it doesn't matter if it's natural or not. If you want to look a certain way, you are going to look that certain way. And breast implants is one of the most common plastic surgeries.
Yeah, I mean, it's very popular here in the United States. It's actually very popular in places like Brazil as well. And modern medicine has made this possible, as you say, because breast implants primarily can come in a variety of different types, but they're actually relatively affordable. And according to a report from the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, almost 100,000 women had breast reconstruction surgery in 2011 alone.
That is a lot.
Yeah, since 1990, the average American bra size has increased from 34B to C, and one of the reasons being breast augmentation. Surgeons globally perform 317,000 boob jobs annually, and only about 100,000 breast reductions. But that to say, I mean, that does happen. 1/3 of the same number. That's still pretty big. Breast augmentation surgery is the #1 surgical procedure performed for women between 19 and 34, which is commonly considered prime mating ages or breeding ages. So that's related to that. But breast implants are super interesting. I find them super cool. I've known some women who've had them. They love their breast implants, which is very interesting from a lot of different perspectives, because it is a lot about how you see your body.
Right.
You know, if you see yourself as disproportionate and you go and get a breast implant, you will then feel more proportional. And if you feel more proportional, you're going to have better self-confidence. You're going to, you know, hold yourself differently, and you're going to feel just better about your body in general. So a lot of people relate that to, you know, pornography, because there's a lot of breast implants in pornography, but it really comes down to how you feel about yourself. And if men could get implants related to making themselves feel more masculine, you know that those implants would exist. There are definitely things like pectoral implants and buttocks implants. They just aren't as common these days with men, and maybe they will be in the future, but at this moment, implant surgeries are much more common.
Right.
Now, breast implants come in two different types. There's saline filled and there's silicone filled. There's been a lot of discussion about the two. But really, they're basically the same. Saline is just a salt water, and silicone is also just like a liquid filling. You can get them over the muscle or under the muscle. You can get them inside of the breast tissue. You can get them put there in any different number of different ways. Up the belly button if you don't want any scars at all, which is kind of crazy. But you can also have your nipple moved. You can go in that way. So it's actually pretty insane. And there are a variety of different ways to do it, and you will get different looks depending on the different choices that people make when they're doing these cosmetic surgeries.
So you mentioned that some of your female friends have had breast implants done. Have you actually felt a breast implant? Because I haven't.
I have, Amy Shear title, felt a few breast implants in my day. I'm not afraid to admit it. Actually, they're interesting in that each breast implant is going to feel different depending on the breast it's in. Just like any person is shaped differently, the body reacts to that breast implant differently as well. So once the implant is in there, your body's going to react to it in the same way as any foreign body.
Right.
So the immune system is going to start to build scar tissue around it. And so after the surgery happens, women are required to basically massage the area around it to make sure that the scar tissue doesn't build up. And you can tell women who don't because they become very stiff, as opposed to women who do, and they become very soft and pliable, much more like a natural breast.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool. And it's all because of how your body reacts to having something inside of it. And it's interesting because some women get them to make themselves feel better, and some get them because they feel like they may have to, which kind of brings us back to pornography. A lot of porn stars who end up getting breast augmentation surgery don't get the more expensive surgeries that require moving the nipple or going in through the belly button, because those don't leave scars, but they cost more money. And then they also don't have time or necessarily inclination, or I don't know, to do all of the massaging that makes it seem like you don't have breast augmentation surgery.
Right. And the prevalence of breast implants in porn, I think, is pretty interesting because for the most part, I think we can admit that most adults have at some point in their lives looked at pornography.
Right.
We typically see implants in those situations, which is sort of a fake breast in a fake sex scenario on, everything about it is surreal and not real. And I'm sort of curious, and if you guys want to jump in the comments and share your thoughts or any experience you might have on this, I'm curious about how if you get implants, that might affect the way that you feel sexually about sort of, does your partner treat you differently? Do you feel sexier? Do you feel like you're not real because you're sort of used to seeing it in porn? I mean, I'm sort of curious about sort of the social and kind of personal impact about how that surgery goes beyond looking a certain way when you're wearing a shirt.
That's very interesting, and I think that's something that really is a call out more to our female commenters. I really would love it if some of our female listeners or viewers out there could reach out to us and let us know how they feel about it. You can send us a tweet. You can find me at Trace Dominguez. You can find Amy at AST Vintage Space. If you want to do something more privately, I accept direct messages from everybody, so you can send it to me that way. But men out there, if you want to talk about it as well, maybe tell us how you feel about it and what you think about maybe your partner has breast augmentation and how you feel about that. Or we don't want to leave out the reduction ladies too. I mean, that's a big deal. I have some friends who've had breast reductions.
As have I, and I think it's
they all love it. They were so happy.
I've never met anyone who was disappointed with their reduction surgery.
It's kind of amazing. So thanks for watching Test Tube Plus today. Make sure you let us know down in the comments how you felt about this, and we will see you tomorrow with more talk about breasts.